Welcome to ChiroSphere, where we talk about all things chiropractic and some things not so chiropractic. I'm Dr. Ray Foxworth, your host for ChiroSphere and CEO of ChiroHealth USA, the network that works for chiropractic. Today we have Dr. Nona DeVede. She is a mom, author, international speaker, and the visionary founder of Elevate Club and the part-time $1 million practice mastermind. She empowers chiropractors and professionals to create the practices and lives of their dreams. With a background in neurology from Berkeley and a doctorate in chiropractic, Dr. Nona uniquely blends science and philosophy to inspire personal and professional transformation. In her book, Elevate Your Life, she outlines 7 pillars of transformation that have impacted thousands of lives. Her expertise and insight have been featured in Forbes, Huffington Post, Orange Coast Magazine, and many other media outlets. Dr. Nona's passion for sharing universal truths has taken her to worldwide stages, and she's currently preparing for her next TED Talk. Welcome, Dr. Nona.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. I sound really great every time I hear, like now listening to the bio you just read. I'm like, that's pretty good.
Not bad, huh?
Really, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
when I used
you.
to, when I used to, they would do the introduction for me at events. I would say, well, now y'all know that my mother wrote that. Yeah. So you
Exactly.
started out studying neurology at Berkeley. How did you transition from that to going into chiropractic? And then ultimately, I guess which came first, the Elevate Club or the part-time $1 million practice mastermind?
Okay. Well, if we want to get deep like that right off the bat, I actually, when I was 2.5, there's a common thread here. So I'm not going to tell you my whole life story, but when I was 2.5, I had a loss. I had a major loss in my life. My mom was pregnant and she gave birth to my little baby brother. And the earliest childhood memory that I have is my dad picking me up in the hospital, like lifting me up against the glass and showing me where my little brother was. I remember that vividly. And the reason it was so vivid or it's such a memory like ingrained in my brain is because it turned out to be a traumatic event because my brother actually passed away due to medical complications in the hospital. He was born healthy and one thing after another, he passed away. And so I think the thread or the seed, I should say, of wanting to help people was really planted at 2.5, like looking back and evaluating the life events of my life. So that's because I watched my parents grieve. I went through the grieving process, obviously didn't know. Yeah, and I can't imagine, but the 2.5-year-old version of me experienced that. I remember watching my mom cry all of a sudden. So I became this individual in the family dynamic to want to help, to want to fix, to want to heal. And so that was when the seed was planted. So when I went to Berkeley and I studied neurology, I was fascinated by how the brain works and how the nervous system works. And once I learned about chiropractic, it seemed like a natural transition. And so went to chiropractic school, became a chiropractor, moved to Southern California and opened up a practice to help people. And towards the end of my practice, even transitioned into seeing kids on the spectrum. So I was deep into wanting to help the most helpless, if you would. And so you asked me, when was Elevate created? Elevate has been a lifetime project, really ran parallel throughout my life. It's teaching people, whether it was my friends, whether it was family members, then later it was my patients, and then later it became business owners that I work with, to help them tap into the unrealized like dream or potential, unlimited potential that we're all born with, that we don't get to experience, that my brother didn't get to experience, but truly had in him. So a way of the ripple effect of being able to help people get to that.
Wow. Yep, I've heard it said we are all the sum total of everything that's ever happened to us in our life. And a lot of times when the bad stuff happens, and we've all We all have our stories. You just can't see the message sometimes while it's happening. And I've also heard life doesn't happen to you; it happens for you. Um,
Mhm.
and I will tell you, there's some stuff I don't know that it happened for. I can't buy all of that all the time. Um, but it is interesting how those things in early childhood, well, I mean, they've shaped us for life and made us who we are. No doubt about that. So you open your practice. You're practicing seeing kids, and I went and did a little bit of research and listened to some things, found some things really interesting. I want to talk to you about it in a couple of minutes. But clearly the common thread is you're still helping people, just in different ways. Um,
Yeah.
you've worked with a lot of chiropractors, and my mom and dad are both chiropractors. I've been around this all of my life. And one of the things I've often wondered about, maybe you can shed some light on this. I've also been around the medical community the majority of my adult life. My practice has been part of a spine center with 13 spine surgeons, orthopedics, neuro, you name it. A VA medical center, started that program there 4 years, so I've had interaction with other professions. And Nona, what I wonder about sometimes is, why do we see that? And I'm going to paint with a broad brush. It's not everyone, clearly, but there seems to be this need, or this maybe it's not a need. We tend to need, I don't know whether it's validation, whether it's acceptance, but I see more chiropractors involved in self-help, self-development, positive mental attitude, things like that, than I ever see in other professionals. What do you think drives
Mm.
that, or is that something you think that is in the person and they just happen to become a chiropractor? Or what are your thoughts on that?
I'm smiling as you're asking me this question because these were my literal thoughts this morning as I had a conversation with a friend about just this particular concept. So it might not come in this conversation very refined because it's a new concept, but I would love to discuss it with you since you feel the same way. I was telling my friend about how a lot of us healers and helpers and people, it really doesn't matter in which field you're in, although there are some philosophies around why chiropractors feel more of the scarcity and the insecurity and wanting to kind of stay safe and be proven or prove themselves and all of those things. But if you go big picture, when you are looking to help other people, 99.9% of the time, if you go 10 layers deep, not on the surface, we hear at every single chiropractic seminar, you talk to leaders in chiropractic, and they'll tell you there's a bigger purpose and you're saving people and you're meant to be a chiropractor and all of these things. But if you go 10 layers deep, there is a level of satisfaction and validation that we are receiving from our patients telling us, I feel better. As a matter of fact, when they don't feel better, when they don't buy a treatment, when they don't do that, then it's like we take it so personally because our self-worth is tied to whether someone is going to have a transformation in their health or not. And so if you think about that, might get a little esoteric, but if you think about if that's where we're coming from as chiropractors, as healers, as helpers, even for myself, I was thinking about this with the chiropractors and entrepreneurs. I mean, I have multiple masterminds and teaching these business owners to quantum leap their businesses. Am I doing that? There's a part of me that is doing that for the self-validation. Like, I can do this. I am helping these people. And then, of course, nowadays with social media, you're also posting it everywhere and you're telling people about it or whatever as part of the need of growing a business too. And if that's the case, if we are coming from energetically, from a frequency perspective, we're coming from a place of almost hate. right? Because if my patients are feeling better, I feel better about myself, it's connected to my self-worth, then really I'm in a space of taking. I'm not in a space of giving, right?
Right.
Now, there's a whole financial aspect, which, kind of makes things money. And that's a whole nother conversation. But if I'm here trying to help you and the underneath that I'm looking for validation that I'm a good chiropractor, that I've helped you, and that makes me feel good, and I'm not disconnected from that, then I'm actually coming from a place of lack. And I'm taking from you. I'm taking from you, the patient.
Fulfill your need.
What?
Fulfill your need.
Fulfill my need. And it's like, and when I like understood the depth of this, I thought to myself, man, do we all need to work on the level of self-worth that does not require external validation? Like, how can we create validation internally within ourselves so we're not energetically, we're not in lack, we're not in need, we're not in scarcity, we are already in fullness and wholeness. So when someone comes in our, vibrational space, in our practice, within our, in this conversation, then they feel whole as well. And the healing that can take place in that space, I would assume, because I try to do what we just talked about with my chiropractors. So it's in a B2B situation, but I would assume the healing that would take place in these chiropractic offices when you show up as whole would be a whole nother level.
Yeah. One of the things that I've consistently seen, and because of the business that we're in with our company, we do work with a lot of doctors more on the financial side of their house. But Nona, I can't tell you the hours that are spent by our team and myself early on when I was interacting with most every doctor. A lot of them turn into therapy sessions. I mean, it is when you're talking to doctors about, in this instance, their fees, it's like they have this poverty complex. Oh, and I can't charge that, or I shouldn't charge. And it really is interesting because, they're delivering wonderful care, they're getting good outcomes, but they're having a hard time valuing it. Or it's almost like, well, if people have to pay for it, am I really fulfilling my role as a servant, as a healer? And that just seems to be, like I said, I've been around this 40 some odd years now. And I mean, I remember my parents going to, back in the day, Parker seminars, Dr. Jim Parker, and I've still got some of the old books, have faith and confidence and belief in your product, service, and ideas. And even back then, they were still trying to teach the chiropractors to value what they do, charge for what you do.
Mhm.
And it's just interesting that I never hear that conversation outside of chiropractic. And again,
Yeah.
because I'm not in those other professions, I'm around them on the periphery, but I've never heard that conversation in a different setting. Do you find the same thing with your clients? Is it where do you think that comes from? How do we fix that?
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think I have some ideas of where it comes from, but I also think to practically get into the self-worth and the value that you provide, that you have to take some practical steps. So what I tell my clients that are coming in, whether in my mastermind or my students in different settings, is I ask them, I tell them there's two different things I'll share on here that might be valuable. One is to play this possibilities game, because most of us are going about our day, and I'll explain what that is, but we're going about our day, we're seeing the patients, and 90% of chiropractors are jaded because they just expect the results because they've seen it for so long. And then when the results happen, you don't have that like first year chiro magic experience. You're like, oh, another miracle. I guess this is the norm. So you become jaded, and you forget how magical chiropractic is, and the thing that you have valuable, the thing that you are creating, the transformation in the patient, how valuable it is to them. I have my doctors do this with their team or with on their own if they're a solo job, to play a possibilities game. So an example of this would be, say, a patient comes in, and this patient is a mom of two little kids, and she suffers with chronic headaches. All right. And so that's a simple, basic case that might come into a chiropractic office. And then I tell my doctors, I go, let's play the possibilities. What would be the possibility if this patient does not get the kick? What are the consequences of her not getting the kick? And I want you to journal on this. I want you to sit down with your team and actually have a conversation about what her life would look like if she doesn't get under chiropractic care, if she doesn't get the chiropractic message, if she doesn't come in, if she comes in every once in a while but doesn't stick to her treatment plan. What are the consequences initially for her? Okay. So at first glance, you go, well, she's got chronic headaches. She's had it since 10. So, I mean, it's not like her life is going to be any different. No, wait a second. If she continues this way, will pain stay the same or get worse? Okay, get worse. What about how she shows up as a mom? How she feels about herself as a mom? Do you think that her tolerance level as a mom is influenced by the headaches that she's experiencing on weekly, daily basis? Do you think that she's harsher on her children? Do you think that she feels guilty and doubt about the kind of mom that she is? Okay, well, let's tap into some of her other roles. Do you think that as a wife, she's going to show up with her husband in that relationship at her full potential? Or do you think that these headaches are going to affect her marriage with her husband? Do you think that her intimate life is influenced by these headaches? Do you think the frequency of her intimate moments are going to be influenced by this? And how do you think this dynamic, this family dynamic, is influencing the children, the future of these children? Do you think that if you're suffering from headaches versus you are completely in joy, do you think you create a completely different dynamic, family dynamic? And so I want you to really get to the heart of the possibility of the consequences. These children are going to grow up with their mother not being fully present in their life because the mother is suffering, rightfully so. So when you go down this path, then you realize, wait a second, chiropractic is way beyond I'm helping someone help their headache. This is, and you could see it as headache, and headache might be a couple $100 treatment plan. But if you zoom out and you see the influence that the shift in the consciousness of the mom is creating in the family dynamic, in the next generation, in the partners that these children are going to pick in the future as a result of the relationship they watched with their parents. If you see it that way, then you're like, man, I'm not charging enough. I'm not charging enough.
Amazing. That is an amazing perspective. If we don't get anything else captured from this podcast, that really is like a mic drop. That brings up so many different thoughts in my mind. You know, I remember a doc years ago, or some guru seminar I was attending, and the instructor said, "Don't ever be a taint nothing doctor." And I'm going, what the hell are you talking about? We see so many patients with headaches or with back pain that we tend to minimize it. And it's nothing, just another back pain patient. But man, if we could get our staff, and more importantly, the patients, to begin to think like that it's, no, this isn't just a headache. You're not seeing the big picture of it. That is, that's a game changer. I mean, it really is.
Yeah, it's a game changer. I think a practice for doctors to have. But like you said, I mean, imagine doing this with your team on weekly basis. The purpose, and your team will start to tell you. I remember when I started doing this, my team was like, my mom, this is what happened in my family. And they start to relate to their own experiences. Now, when they're making a phone call to get somebody back on the calendar, it's not because you asked them. It's not a tedious job. It's not just another task. It's like, no. I'm saving this family and their future.
Yeah. One of the things I found effective in practice, because after a while, like you said, you've been doing this for so long, it's another headache, it's another low back. And we've got staff that are, or at the time I had staff that are varying degrees of experience. Some are new, some are older. And some of your older team members can, they've been around a while. They've seen that, it's just another back pain. And what we would do in our staff meetings, we would have them religiously, weekly, and we would do a case review. We'd just pull one of our files and literally walk all the team members through how it was affecting them, what finally made them come in, And what I found is, I wonder if I was doing that for the staff as much as I was doing it for myself, because it helped me kind of regain some enthusiasm and sharing that, with the team members. So that's a great exercise to go through. I'm gonna have to share that one with some people. So when we talked about, you had the Elevate Club and then the Part-Time $1 Million Club, you shared with me before we went live on this, that you kind of got burnt out in just practice. I know a lot of people that are there, and I've heard that burnout is the indirect result of not being, I'm butchering this, but basically we're not being rewarded for the effort that we put in. We're not getting that. There's not enough. What's in it for
Value
me? That
yeah,
value
the
exchange.
value exchange.
Yeah. So what was at the root of your burnout? Number one, it's great that people recognize, hey, I'm here. How do you dig
Mhm.
out of that? You tell a doctor this, saying, man, I've been doing this for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Damn, I got to go in the office again today. What do you do when you're there?
I burnt out, thank goodness, early on in my chiropractic profession. And I think it was a blessing because I was able to make some shifts. So just like a lot of chiropractors, just like me, like I saw coaching and practice management groups, right? When I first got out into opening my practice, which was literally 9 months after I'd graduated, I thought, okay, I'm going to open this up. I'm going to be successful. I'm going to help a lot of people. And I open my practice. I go with, tried a couple of different practice management groups, and they worked really well. I put in the systems, and I had what you would call, what any financial guy would call, a really successful practice. On paper, I was doing amazing. I had multiple team members, things were working. Now, at the same time, I had also, I was also a slave to my practice. I had a
Mhm.
personality-based practice. Everybody loved Dr. Nona. I could not, it didn't matter what kind of associate I would get. The numbers would drop. If I went on vacation, the numbers would drop. It almost felt like, oh my gosh, I have built this massive practice, and I built myself these golden handcuffs, and I cannot go anywhere. I cannot do anything. And it was during a time where, I'm young, I want to start a family, and I want to travel, and I want to do all of these things. And that was really the trigger for me to start to reevaluate things, because there was this idea of success and building in practice. Even my marriage at the time, like I ticked off all these boxes. Oh, I'm married. I'm about to have a child. I have a successful practice. I looked really good on paper, kind of like the bio that you just read today. But underneath it all, I felt completely burnt out. I felt like I felt trapped in the life that I had created that was supposedly really nice, and I should be grateful for it. And in a what I call a God moment, I was at basically the very bottom of the the hole, and I realized that that was not my dream. It was a borrowed dream. Like my practice management coaches were telling me to do these things, and my parents and the culture and the media, everybody was saying like to follow these steps and build this thing and you'll be happy. And I realized that was really a borrowed dream. So what was the life that I wanted to create and live? And so I started to kind of dig into that. What was the life before all of my roles as a mom, as a wife, as a chiropractor, as a healer? Like, who was I? How I came to this world to do what? To live what kind of life? To have what kind of impact? And so I started to reevaluate things. And of course, family was a really big value and is my biggest core value. Freedom is a really big one for me. Having the ability financially, time wise, energetically to travel, adventure, take my kids out of school and world school them whenever I want to now. But that was the life that I had really wanted. And this practice that I had built was not giving me that life. So it was really not just a not equal value exchange or an off value exchange, but it really was completely out of alignment with the life I wanted. I'd built a business, and the life I wanted to live was not going to integrate with that business that I had lived. So I started to move things around, design the life first, started to dream about the kind of life and the kind of experience and impact I want to have, and then brought those principles into my practice. So within a year, I switched the systems around to be able to create a part-time, at the time it was like 20 hours a week, $1 million dropped insurance cash practice that I created at the time. And that happened within a year. Even though my practice prior to that was really successful, but I was also, even if I wasn't in the practice, I was thinking about it, I was stressing about it, there was always something. So now I had this practice where it gave me freedom, not just financially, but also time and energy where I could integrate the kind of life that I wanted to live. So from there, I started to teach other chiropractors how to do it. And then from there, I realized it wasn't all about systems. It had a lot more to do with mindset and the ability to dream outside the box and see the possibilities. And so I started Elevate Club, which is where I teach the mindset aspect of things. But that's kind of the journey from burnout to in a chiropractic world, being able to build something that was meaningful and aligned.
So if you had to describe the avatar of the person that would benefit the most from the work that you do with them, where are they in their career? Who really needs this?
Ray, I
know so many successful practitioners that are miserable
yeah,
on the surface, like we've talked about. On the surface, it looks great. Underneath,
yeah.
they're just not in a good place. How do they reach out to you? What are the first steps that someone should take? Is there where would you suggest they start? They just listen to this. They say, "Hey, I'm kind of there. What should I do first?"
Yeah, I want to give like a practical thing anyone that's listening to this can do is to really start to dream up a life that you want to live, and then see where your practice is not in alignment with that. It's going to take some contemplation. When I first started this work, I thought, oh, this got to be for like women chiropractors who want to have a family. And then I would go on stages and I would share my message. And then there was a line of men who were like, I'm burnt out. My kids are out of school, and I'm an empty nester, and I have lots of regret about how the time I didn't spend with my family. So in terms of who would benefit, really anyone who's feeling like I'm a slave to my clinic right now. How do or maybe I'm in a phase of growth, like I want to scale, I want to multiply. I have multiple clinics I work with that are looking to multiply, but they don't want to burn out in the process. They want to scale with ease. And so that's the mindset, energetic piece that works together with this. So typically it's people who've been in the practice for a while. They're, you would say that they're successful. They have a decent volume, and they want more ease. They want more free time, and they want to increase their profitability while creating more free time. And I think I have tons of free resources on my social media pages. So if somebody goes to my Instagram, which is my first name, my last name, Nona Djavid, or Facebook. If you don't have Instagram, there's tons of free resources there. I'm constantly going live and sharing what's helpful, what I think is helpful. But if someone's listening to this and they want more, then send me a DM, say, Ray sent me and came to ChiroSphere podcast, and I'm happy to support anybody, connect with anybody if I can help.
Right. Well, I know you've got a hard stop. I wish we had about another hour. I've really enjoyed talking with you. I've watched several of your YouTube videos, and one in particular I want to have a conversation with you about one day. It was about the topic of people being when they're in lack and they're struggling, they make decisions out of fear versus to the point of the dream, and how those first two things didn't. But anyway, I really found that fascinating, and I'd love to continue that conversation someday. For those of you that don't have any idea what I'm talking about, go to YouTube and check it out. It's good stuff there. Well, I really appreciate you being with us today. It's been a blast. To all the people watching, we appreciate you watching our podcast. Please subscribe and share it with your friends. Let us know who you'd like to hear from in the future, what topics you'd like us to cover, and we'll do our best to deliver. If you want to learn more about ChiroHealth USA and how we can help you develop a compliant, profitable discount strategy that will absolutely grow your practice, your income, and profitability, call us at 888-719-9990. or visit our website to find out why ChiroHealth USA is the network that works for chiropractic and you. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.